Today is Friday, and as you guys know, I busted the what did I bust? I busted the tournament yesterday, and decided today I'm gonna fire. I'm feeling pretty good. Today is gonna be a $500 bounty, so it's gonna be $350 to the prize pool, $50 entry fee, and a $100 black chip bounty. So that should be fun. One thing I really love about it is it's 45-minute levels instead of 30-minute levels like yesterday. So a little bit more time, not to just like sit back on my hands, but really get the lay of the table so I can kind of start trying to exploit people. And it's not, like level 4 before I'm able to do that. To be fair, yesterday I don't think that was really any part of the problem. It was just kind of the hand distribution and the way that I chose to play the final hand. Gonna head out now. Just discovered there's no toilet paper in this room. Luckily I did not have to find that out the hard way. Don't think I need to elaborate further. I'm going to talk with the guys at the front desk who don't speak a whole lot of English, so hopefully they know what toilet paper is. I think they will. This is like an irrational fear that they won't, but yeah, let's just go. I've had this annoying habit of forgetting things, and usually it's just one item, but it's typically kind of important. As we're getting into the colder weather here, I forgot my coat. I know you guys don't normally see me with sunglasses on, but just figured I'd show you. What do we think? What do we think? Yeah? Huh? No? Huh? Yeah, I don't love them. I've yet to find sunglasses that I feel fit my face because I have a very, very narrow face. So I'm gonna try to register. Let's go. So in Atlantic City, saw a few people who know the vlog. I need to give a couple quick shout outs. So first was Colin. Met him, I think right before the $600 event 1 that I played and did not cash in. Also quick shout out to Alex, Brendan, Trebendo, who I didn't see but is a friend of mine, and Neil. And then last of all, need to give a shout out to Mike, who I've actually shouted out on the vlog before. When I met him in Atlantic City the first time, he wasn't sure of my name, and he thought I was Brad at first, Brad Owen. But he did actually watch the vlog, and so that was kind of a funny little joke. He commented on the video when I talked about it, and I actually ran into him again, and so we just kind of joked about that. And it was good to see you, Mike. Hope to run into you again next time I'm in Atlantic City. So this tournament was actually a $500 black chip bounty tournament. I kind of entered it on a whim. Wasn't really planning to play more than one tournament while I was in town, but since I busted my first one, just decided to hop into it and see what we could make happen. Not too much happened in the early levels aside from me busting one bullet. This is my second bullet. I've re-entered at this point, sitting on about 80k to start this hand. There's 2 limps to me. I'm in the hijack with pocket kings, second best hand in poker. I don't want to see it limped around. I also don't want to raise small, so I make it 4k here. Cutoff folds, but the button jams. Gives us some good news. He goes all in for 16k and change. The big blind, who is a kind of crazy player, sort of playing a lot of hands, willing to get aggro pre-flop and post-flop, he actually calls the 16k. Folds back around to me, and he's got about 60 or 70k himself. Now, it's going to be kind of awkward if I re-raise small here because there's already 16k in from each player. That means well, assuming I put in the 16K, there's already 48K in the pot before I even put any raise in. So it's hard to think of a size where I'll get him to do anything but just call. So I just decided to jam. I figure I'll either get heads up against the button, which is a fine result, there's a bunch of dead money, or the big blind will just kind of spaz out and put it in. And that's pretty much what happens. I go all in. The big blind doesn't really take that long and calls with ace queen. The button has pocket eights, so we are not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of equity between those two, but in pretty good shape right now. The board runs out jack 6-3, 4, 5. No flush is possible. Kings is going to hold and take it down. So this is an amazing result. Catapulted me up to 150K. I was definitely among the chip leaders right after this hand, and was feeling pretty good about the situation at this point. This next hand, we're at the 300-600 level with a 75 ante. I open king jack of diamonds under the gun to 1700. The hijack calls, so we go heads into a flop. Flop top pair on jack 5-4. I bet 2K, and he pretty quickly raises to 5600. Not my favorite situation, but definitely not folding. There is a flush draw out there. There's some straight draws out there, and it's actually possible someone would just raise a jack here. So I make the call. The turn's ace of diamonds. I check. He bets 7,000 now, and again I make the call. Kind of the same reasoning, although at this point he wouldn't really play a jack this way unless it's ace jack. But that being said, the number of combos of ace jack are reduced at least. I think the turn should possibly be a fold here though, just because we have to expect him to be barreling a pretty high percentage of the time with his bluffs to make this a profitable continue. And it's going to be pretty hard to check call most rivers unless we improve. But I do end up calling, and we're off to a river. River's the queen of diamonds. It's not a very good card. There's now several combinations that we are losing to that we wouldn't have been losing to before. These are hands like ace x of hearts, queen x of hearts, and it's just going to be really hard for us to call down now. That being said, I don't expect him to really bet one pair all the time, and probably never just betting a pair of queens. I check, and he bets 12,000. Really looks like a value bet. It's really going to be hard to call here. I don't expect him to necessarily barrel off his flush draws and straight draws that often. And this player's been tight and straightforward so far. Haven't seen him bluff like anything other than maybe a flop c-bet. So I just don't have enough information to make this call. I tank fold, and he shows me a bluff. He shows me 10-7 of hearts. So the interesting thing about this hand is that I actually think his bluff is pretty bad, because on specifically this turn in river, I'm actually going to improve to two pair like a lot. And there's just no way I'm folding two pair on this run out when the draws do miss. I just had one of the best hands in my range to fold, and pretty much one of the only hands in my range to fold. I think it's pretty likely I let go of under pairs to the jack on just the flop raise. So what I'm left with on the turn is stuff like sets, ace jack, king jack, queen jack. And king jack is the only one of those hands that isn't two pair or better on the river. So I don't really love his bluff. It worked this time. It's a little bit frustrating that he didn't give up, but I think I still made the right fold, and pretty much every other time in my range I'm going to have something I can call with. In this next hand, there wasn't a ton of interesting action. It was just a hand where I got it in with ace 6 of spades on ace 5-4 and 2 spades. It was up against pocket fours, and I did not get there. That was for about 13,000 each, so that knocked me down as well. Pretty much the next orbit, I get into another hand against the same player who got it with pocket fours. He opens to 1,500 from early position. We're currently 8-handed. I flat in the hijack with queen 10 of diamonds, and we go heads up to a flop. The flop comes jack 9-4, 1 diamond, so I've got open-ended and a backdoor flush draw plus an over. Pretty decent flop for this hand, actually. He checks, and I bet 1,500. He actually ends up check calling, which is a little bit unexpected, but I think pretty often it's just going to be something like ace king, ace queen, where he's peeling one, wants to see another card, doesn't want to give up, but also didn't feel like c-betting. The turn's a jack of diamonds, which I certainly have mixed feelings about. I don't think there's a lot of jack X in his range, so that's not really part of the consideration. It obviously improves my hand to now a flush draw to go with my open-ended, so that's a pretty good development. But by the same token, it does pair the board which makes it maybe a little bit less likely that I can get a fold from certain parts of his range. Maybe like a hand like pocket 10s or pocket 8s won't really want to fold anymore. So he does check. I still decide to go for it. I think this hand just has too much equity to not pick it as a bluff. So I go ahead and bet 3,600. He calls again, so not super excited. Definitely seems like he's in that middling portion of his range. Probably one pair in addition to the jacks. Definitely don't think he's holding on with ace high at this point. The river I consider to be one of the worst cards in the deck. It's a third jack. So it puts trips on the board and just decreases the amount of plausible value hands I can have here by a whole bunch. Again, I don't think he really ever has a jack, but when he checks, I just don't think I can barrel here. I think any one pair in his range, he's just gonna side call with, even if he thinks I sometimes have quads. You could maybe make an argument for like 2xing the pot or something like that, but in these smaller buy-in tournaments, I just think that's a recipe for disaster. In case anybody decided to play aces weird, or they played pocket 9s weird, they're just never getting away. And additionally, I don't think he's folding pocket 10s, maybe not even pocket 8s at this point. So I decide to give up. He unfortunately turns over 9-8 of spades. He flopped second pair, check called twice, pretty reasonable. And then on this river, obviously, I'm kind of forced to give up. Definitely don't think he was folding that hand, so I didn't lose as much as I could have. But by the same token, I think virtually every other river card, I either improve to a hand that beats him with any queen, any 10, any king, any 8, any diamond, or I get to barrel and he's just going to fold, other than a 9, I guess. I wouldn't have barreled a 9 either. So kind of frustrating spot. Nothing's really been working out for me after that big hand with kings. And I'm just kind of bleeding down. In this next hand, we are at the 400, 800 level, still with the 75 ante, down to about 110k, but obviously still a very healthy stack. There's this tight older guy who opens to 2100 in middle position. I have 8-5 of spades in the hijack, and I decide to make a little bit of a loose call. I have position, I have a hand that's going to play okay, and I think I'm just going to be able to outmaneuver him post-flop pretty often. The big blind, who is the guy from the 10-7 hand, where he bluffed and showed, also makes the call. The flop is ace 8-8, checks to me, and I bet 3,500. The big blind calls, which is a little unexpected, but definitely welcome. Turns a 4, which is the second diamond on board. He checks, and I bet 8,500 now. He makes the call. The river, it's not good. It's not a good card. The river's an ace. I just keep seeming to find the worst possible river card in the deck. Just call for it. It'll come. Seems like that's just how it's been going. So even though I had this giant stack, there's no way I'm winning this hand. He pretty much always has an ace. When he doesn't have an ace, he has an 8. And so we'd be chopping. I don't think he has an 8 often enough for me to turn this into a bluff, though, to get him off chops. Just nothing's going to work. I'm either chopping or losing this pot, usually losing it. So I check it back. He indeed has ace 9, and he's going to take it down. In this hand, we're now at the 501k level. There's a 100 ante in play. There's a regular who's been pretty loose passive who limps in. There is a kind of another reg, but he's one of these guys who, I don't know how to say, like, I think he's very overconfident in his abilities, and he's been complaining about running bad constantly despite sucking out on a couple people. Anyway, he's on the button and he makes it 5,200. I'm in the small blind and I have a little bit of an awkward decision between calling and 3-betting, probably 3-bet getting it in. He's got about 34k, so if I do 3-bet, I can't really be 3-bet folding. I decide to flat since I'm not convinced getting it in will really be profitable. The guy in middle position who limped in also calls, so we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes pretty good. It's jack high for us with a flush draw on board. It checks to the button who bets 14k with 18k behind. Pretty awkward. I don't think I can really ever release a hand this good, and I'm certainly on one of the best hands I can have in my range other than like the bottom 2 sets. That being said, it certainly feels like he is trying to protect a big hand here, betting close to pot with almost half a stack, but at the same time, this hand's just too good, and there's so much in the middle. I'm not dead to basically any hand except for pretty much aces. So I just stick it in. I go all in. Folds back around to him, and he like insta calls. He calls so fast. The money's basically in before I've put my bet in. And I'm worried, right? I think when he calls like this, it always feels like queens are better or the same hand, pretty much. So I'm shocked when I turn it over and he turns over pocket nines. Just not what I was expecting. So he's got black pocket nines. He's dead to a 9 and some running straight draws though, because I've got the jack of spades. He can't hit a running flush. Definitely okay with this. Let's see what we can make happen. The turn's a 10 of spades, which doesn't really change anything, doesn't give him any backdoors. But since he has the 9 of spades, like, it doesn't remove any outs either. He's just down to 2. Only 2 cards in the deck that can help him. Otherwise, he's out of here. He's going home. He's Oh. Nice hand. So at this point, I was down a lot from where I'd been. The blinds started kicking up. Didn't really get any more good situations at this point. And, you know, it just didn't go my way. I sort of stopped taking notes at this point. It's a little bit embarrassing because usually I try to take good notes no matter how things are going, but I just really wasn't in the mood for that. I tried to, you know, hold it together and play well. I think I did an okay job, but just as you could see from the last few hands, just kind of wasn't my tournament. But that's tournament poker sometimes. I did have the good fortune of swapping action with my buddy Steve Catterson, who made a pretty deep run in event 1. So I got a little bit of a kickback from that. All right, so I know I did a bad job vlogging the rest of the weekend. I just got kind of tired of having the camera on. It doesn't happen to me that often, but you know, I didn't run that great in the tournaments. You know, I didn't cash anything. So by you know, like the 4th and 5th bullets, I wasn't really feeling vlogging it. And then I was hanging out with some friends, and sometimes it's a little harder for me to have the camera on with other people, just because you know, I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to be present with them, and you know, enjoy my time with them. And so I didn't really film anything else. I don't think I even gave you guys the results of like what I played. I ended up getting 2 cash sessions in. Thank you. Yeah, so I didn't have the camera on as much as I would like. I fired event number 1, just $600, and I was out very quickly. The next tournament I fired was the Black Chip Bounty. I busted my first bullet fairly quickly. Rebot was on the same table. It was a great table. Actually, really, really enjoyable table, which is nice because sometimes you get in these tournaments and it's a little grindery, it's a little boring, it's a little nitty. But this was a good group. The next tournament was a $400 one-day tournament, and nothing super interesting happened in that event. I just felt like it was kind of, I played reasonably well. I didn't make any large errors, but at the same time, it just wasn't my day. That's just kind of how tournaments go. You know, you can't really control how things are going to go in the short run. Cash games are the same way, but in tournaments, it becomes a little more obvious. I feel like in the short run, you're even more at the mercy of the cards, just due to the blinds going up. But it is what it is, so I ended up busting 1 bullet in the 600, 2 bullets in the 500, but I got 5 bounties in that, so it was like I busted 1 bullet. And ironically, all of my bounties came in the 2nd bullet, so it was basically like I just didn't play that 2nd bullet. And then 2 bullets in the $400 event. So that ended up coming out to, was that like minus 1900 in tournaments? But then that night, met up, got some food with some guys, Chip Extractor, Chris Persuadio, and Ryan the Lion. So that was a fun time. I booked a 1755 win that day, which, you know, almost completely recouped my losses. And then today I played a short session, about 3 hours, something like that, maybe a little less actually. And I just cashed out from that, plus 217. But I'll take it. It's basically a break-even trip for me. My expenses were very minimal this time around. I stayed even cheaper than last time, like $130 for 3 nights in a motel. 3 nights in a motel, $130. Definitely take it. That's pretty much it. That's the trip report. Had some really good conversations with those guys. Just overall, really had a fun trip. So, you know, if I can break even and have a really fun trip, to me, that's like
Put your hands together. Yeah. Put your hands together. Put your hands